Welcome to our October refresher webinar, and so good to see you all joining. Appreciate the time to just do this, to refresh some of the concepts from the classes, but also to just really take some time for yourself. And I think that's the name of the game, and the bottom line is to put yourself, if not first, at least higher up on the priority ladder. We all have lots of things that we got to get done and people that we're taking care of and all of that. And it's really easy to let our own needs, especially these kinds of things. I mean, to sit quietly for whatever, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes is hard. It's hard to take that time. It's hard to justify taking that time. But that's what these are all for. So, and I'm glad you're here because you're taking the time today. So I commend you for that. So let's just do a quick pause just to bring us here, and then we'll talk a little bit about how it's going. I'll open it up, but just pause for a second. And especially if you're working or you're doing stuff, just consciously turn away from the screens, the to-do list, the emails, the texts, whatever they are. And just sit for a moment and maybe just turn inward and ask yourself, how am I doing right now? And asking yourself that question, just notice what comes up. And just pausing for a minute, and I'll give you some silence to just be aware of any thoughts or feelings or body sensations. How are you doing right now? And as you do that, just breathing, paying attention to your breath as well. Maybe making your breath a little bit longer on the in and the out breath. And then just checking in with the body. And if you are aware of tension, if you're having some stress going on or lots to do or whatever, and you're noticing maybe tension in a particular area, just let that area relax and soften, and just let your body be anchored where you are in the chair. Give yourself up to gravity for a moment. And that's it. That's a quick pause. And so coming back to our Zoom world, and just let me ask you, how's it going? Does anybody have any questions or comments about what you're doing or trying to do in your daily mindfulness practices, meditation, either formal or informal? What's working? What gets in the way? What do you need? Any questions? And you can unmute yourself or use the chat feature.
Well, I've been trying to get to sleep a little earlier because I find if I'm well rested, I do handle stress of everyday life better and feel better, and also been focusing on a hobby of mine a little bit more than I have in the past, and find that's given me a lot of relief in that area too.
Love it. Thank you, Barbara. Those are great suggestions, and I love them because they're things that we all can do. And not necessarily mindfulness, although I think it's related to our mindful practices. Certainly the doing more of a hobby thing, fun stuff, things we like. I'm going to actually touch on that today briefly, but that's certainly a great way to decompress. And as the sleep is probably the most important thing for all of us. And I think many of us don't get enough sleep. So yeah, I mean, trying to make sure you get enough quality sleep at least. I've heard lots of stuff recently about this, that, we really need probably more sleep than we think. And for many of us, our sleep hygiene is not so good, or it changes. I know mine's changed over time, so I have to pay extra attention to, I wake up in the middle of the night, and so it's a little harder to get back to sleep than it ever used to be. So that's something for me I've got to try to work on. And I use some body scans and other mindful techniques to do that. A couple of comments here. Yeah, I found that I've gotten away from the practice and I need to get back to it. So good. Well, see, even that realization and that you're here today is, we can start fresh. In fact, I'm going to talk about beginner's mind. We can start fresh in any moment. So starting right now, right today, you're doing it. And just, a quick little thing I'll mention. I was listening to something off of, I think it was the 10% Happier app. And there's a fella on there, Alexis Santos. He talks a lot about doing these meditation practices on the go. In other words, not sitting, closing your eyes, meditating, but bringing mindful awareness to everyday activities. And he suggested just periodically throughout the day, ask yourself, what am I aware of? Just stop, even that simple little pause. What am I aware of right now? And just tuning into that for a moment is a great way to kind of continue. The more you do that, he says that if you can basically tip the scales to the point where you're becoming more and more aware rather than on autopilot. So try that. Meditation is great. Spending as much time as I can outdoors, mindfully enjoying the scenery and just listening to nature. Yeah, and I've got a piece on that too. So we're all on the same wavelength here. But that, I think, is fantastic to just really connect with the beauty of nature. And of course, we're going into a beautiful period of time right now. And the weather is still nice. But you can even do that in the middle of winter. It's really, really appreciating what's out there in winter too. So let's see, when things become stressful, I turn to meditation. Good, to help relax me. Yeah. So that's perfect. When you feel the stress, do something to counteract it. However, gotten out of practice of doing it every day. So I need to get back to it. So yeah, well, okay. So make an intention and do what you can to make it a daily practice, even if it's brief, like they say, even doing it for a minute or two counts. So if that's all the time you've got, and maybe you spend a little more time once you start. Pausing to take the 3 breaths when I'm feeling anxious or stressed. Yeah, that's sometimes all it takes. 3 breaths to pause. So perfect. So these are great observations and comments. Thank you all. So beginning sort of the potpourri hodgepodge stuff. This is something that I showed previously, but I like this. Fortunately, having meditated for around 20 years now, I know how to be with unpleasant sensations, from trivial ones like knee pain and annoying sounds to serious ones like family trauma and self-judgment. In fact, the process for all of these, serious and silly alike, is strikingly similar. Notice the feeling, accept it with some self-compassion, and just allow it to exist without doing anything about it. Jay Michelson is one of the teachers on the 10% Happier app. And so I was, I related to this myself in the past few weeks. There's just a lot going on in my life as well, and things that are, just as he says, the little trivial things that are annoying, but also some bigger family stuff that's going on. And, it's hard to do this. But that's all you have to do. Notice it, accept it with self-compassion, allow it to be there without doing anything. Realize you can just be with it for the moment. Sounds simple, but not always easy in the moment. So here's some things using the five senses for relaxation, self-soothing, and a couple of you already brought up things that do this. So using your vision, looking through a photo album or on your phone, nature could be real, being in nature, or even a nature scene or video can work. Hearing, listening to something soothing, music, peaceful sounds, taste, obviously, favorite foods or a new taste. And I'm going to talk about the beginner's mind again. And basically all of this can be done with a beginner's mind. And then touch, feeling water in a bath, shower, or swimming, observing textures of things, sand, or feeling warm breeze. So just, I've talked about this idea of savoring. And when these things happen, to not rush through it. I know we don't intentionally do that, but take some time with it so that it kind of sinks in and installs, the software installs in the hardware on our minds. So here's some other simple things. The 5, 3, 2, 1 is very similar, using the five senses, looking at 5 things, hearing 4 things, feeling 3 things, and then 2 smells and 1 taste. Great way to ground. I've also talked about this, where even just if your mind is really scattered, just what I do is I first look for something. Like right now, there's lots of great colors, either in the flowers or the leaves. So I look for something visually, and then I start to listen. What do I hear? Whether it's crickets or birds or even the sound of a leaf blower, what do you hear? And then continuing on like that, what do you feel? What's your body feeling? It's a great way, and you'll get distracted, and we'll talk about that, but it's a great way to ground. These other ones I've shared before, but the meditation on the go is from actually the New York Times, had an article. The hand tracing is, I've done this before, it's a great way to disengage from anxiety. You simply put your hand up, if you can see this, and you just trace the outline of your hand one way, and then you go back and do it the other way. And just that sense of paying attention to that, and the feelings of it, and trying to, again, take your mind off all the swirling thoughts. Feel your feet is another thing. I always like this in my meditations, to just feel that sense of being grounded through your feet. Then there's mindful gardening, which, gardening is not as fun this time of year. Mostly it's clean up stuff, but you can do that too. You can pay attention when you're outside in the yard doing stuff in a mindful way. And then the Meditative Story podcast. Again, I just want to remind you of that. They always have a brief meditation at the end, and a couple of interludes in the story where he stops and says, how does this strike you? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's going on? Put yourself in the place of the person who's telling the story. And then the New York Times Fresh Start. I just checked this link and it should work. But it's just a nice little, 10-day challenge if you want to try that. The Meditate on the Go is from that, I believe. But it just encompasses a lot of different things. So not all meditation, but it's just fresh start to kind of look at things in a fresh new way. And so this is a perfect time here for forest bathing, or just simply getting out in nature. And as we kind of just look at this scenery, we can begin to step outside and immerse ourselves in it. And that's kind of what this is all about, is immersing ourselves. I'm going to bring up my notes here. Now, are you just seeing still the scene, the forest bathing scene?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So there is an article on this, and I'll try to remember to attach it. And there's actually another thing too that I have that I will send as well. It's actually a link. But just simply the idea of really immersing yourself, paying attention to the sounds of the forest, the scent of the trees, the sunlight playing through the leaves, the fresh, clean air. These things all give us a sense of renewal and a sense of comfort. And they take our minds off, what we're stressed and worried about. So, doing some of this and really not taking it for granted, but really doing it so that it helps to refresh us and kind of rejuvenate us. So at this point, I want to do the first meditation, which actually part of it is from the meditative story. I like how he phrases things. So I'm going to do that. And in this meditation, we'll start with typically how, when our minds go off and wander, a good way to kind of bring them back. And then we'll do a little, maybe a little guided imagery about, maybe going to a favorite place in the forest. So just find a comfortable position and just close the eyes. We'll start there, closing the eyes. Or if you'd prefer, you can keep them slightly open, but whatever way that feels safe for you in wherever you are, and so that you feel comfortable. And having the body in a way that encourages alertness. So if you're sitting, letting the back be straight. And if possible, the body also held in a way that encourages openness. So letting the belly and the face and the hands be soft. And seeing if you can just be alert and open and balanced in your posture. Now that we're a little bit settled, we're going to rest our attention on the sensations of breathing. And the easiest way to do this is to put a hand on our belly. So please go ahead and do that if that's okay. And become aware of the sensations of breathing in the place where our hand meets the belly, rising and falling. And what we're going to do is decide to make breathing the most important thing in the world right now. Putting as much of our attention here as we can and resting it here. Connecting with the sensations of breathing here in the belly and enjoying the gentle rhythm and letting the mind sink down and rest here. But of course, our minds will fly away. Our mind and our attention is so used to moving from one thing to another. So it's a little surprised that it would also do that now while we're meditating, right? So it's nothing to worry about. You're not doing it wrong. So given that we are easily distracted, what we're going to do here is train ourselves to be more steady. And we do it like this. Despite our best intention to stay connected to our breathing, we'll notice our minds slipping away. And each time we notice that our minds have slipped away from the breath, we just bring it back to the breath in the belly. And we mark that by saying the word back softly to ourselves. So let's give it a go. With hand on belly, we connect with the sensations of breathing. And then when we find we've become distracted by something, we just bring our mind back to the breath and say the word back to ourselves. I'm going to give you a little bit of silence for that. Again, whenever you notice being distracted by whatever it is, just noticing that and saying the word back, coming back to the feeling of the breath of the belly. Now for the next step, just imagine you're in the forest somewhere, just outside in nature. It could be a favorite spot that you have. Or it could be completely made up. You can look at this image that I've left on the screen, wherever, but just kind of put yourself in this spot and just take a moment to be there. And using your imagination and your mind's eye, just look around. What do you see? What colors, textures, shapes? What do you hear? Any sounds near or far away in this place? What do you feel? Maybe it's the breeze on your skin, or the sun on your face, or your feet crunching the leaves beneath you. What do you feel? Maybe it's an internal sensation in the body of being relaxed. And what do you smell? Maybe there's some aromas in the air, and maybe even some tastes. So just take a moment and immerse yourself and, in a sense, bathe in this scene in your imagination. Just allow yourself to rest here. And just notice what that feels like. And remember too, if your mind does distract you and you go away from the scene, just same thing, say to yourself, back, come back to the scene. And just rest and notice how it feels. And so with that, we'll let that scene dissolve, and know that you can go back to it anytime and feel your body again in the chair and your feet on the floor, and listen to this sound as we finish the meditation. Okay, well, so as you read this quote, I'm going to talk a little bit about beginner's mind. Excuse me for 1 second, because I'm going to let my cat out of the room. You can read that quote. Don't know if you heard my cat in the background meowing, but that's part of the forest scene, right? So a lot of this is really about that attitude of beginner's mind. Remember, we've talked about this before, and it's really simply seeing things as if for the first time. So I'll give you an idea what I'm talking about here. Last night I was sitting watching one of the baseball games, and I was having a couple of pieces of pizza. Probably not the healthiest thing to eat, but I love it the way that I make it. I'm going to probably make you hungry here. What I do is I take just a plain piece of pizza, and then on top of it, on one piece, I add a whole bunch of pepperoni. And then the other piece I try to make that the healthy piece. I add roasted red peppers, artichoke hearts, and black olives. And then I take some Parmesan and I sprinkle it on it, and some fresh basil. I still have a little bit of fresh basil left, and I sprinkle that on top. So it's really wonderful flavors, especially between the two pieces. So I'm sitting there, I'm eating my pizza, watching the ball game, and the phone rings. Okay, so, well, first of all, let me say, I'm really trying to taste the pizza. I'm using the beginner's mind. I'm trying to really isolate even the flavors of the different veggies in there and so forth. Then the phone rings, and of course, distraction, and it's family member looking for my wife. She happens to be out. And so, a few minutes dealing with that, total distraction, come back to the pizza, finish, try to eat some more, really coming back into the beginner's mind, really taking in bite by bite, flavor by flavor as best I can. Really, just feeling the crunchiness of it, the flavors, the smells, the whole thing. Phone rings again. It's my sister. And, Thanksgiving's coming up. So there's details to attend to and so forth. So again, pretty big distraction. My mind is off. It's planning, thinking, doing. But still, there's pizza left. So I come back to the pizza. Got a few bites left. Try to reconnect, And then there's something happens in the game on the TV, another distraction. So as you can see, you can sort of see where this is going. It's just the way life is, right? But you keep coming back and back time and time again, and that's the practice. So with beginner's mind, it's just the same thing. You really zero in on whatever it is that you're doing as mindfully as you can, as thoughtfully as you can, and it's just a great way to to give yourself and your mind especially a break about all that other stuff that happens. It's still going to happen. You're still going to get those distractions, but you can just use that word back and just come back, or remember to come back to beginner's mind. So this one here, I just quickly point out, this is a great article, this link here on body first practices. And she talks about moving the body is number one. Number two is breathing in and out. So we do that all the time. Number three is finding nature. So again, there's that nature connection. And number four is finding the rhythm. And she talks about that there's this natural rhythm in nature, in our world, that can be very effective to help settle and stabilize a busy mind. So usually some sort of patterned, repetitive, rhythmic activity elicits a sensation of safety. So rhythm is regulating. It's even just think about the heartbeat or music or some sort of natural, even the rhythm of the ticking of a clock, something like that. So that's what you'll see in that article there if you want to read it. And then if you remember, I've talked about the 9 attitudes of mindfulness. They're actual videos, but this link here goes to an article on, these are both on mindfulleader.org. And this goes to an article which has a really nice summary of the 9 attitudes. So if you just want to read them, and they're all listed here. And then there is a link to that video also if you want to watch that again, or if you haven't watched it, by Jon Kabat-Zinn. But really nice little summary there. So that's there for you to kind of check into. So more Hodgepodge, a little more, this again from Jay Michelson. But we have a little secret. Mindfulness complements any approach you take and what issue you're addressing. Whether it's anxiety or eating or job, stress or love, the advice is similar: to be with the sensation rather than grab it or push it away, to cultivate some self-compassion, to witness whatever is happening, awake, aware, and engaged. So again, just another reminder, that sometimes there are unpleasant things that we want to, we want to get back to the pleasantness, and we want to hold on to the pleasantness. But remember, it's this idea of we're really not trying to hold on to anything longer than it's going to be there, but also to not push away things that are somewhat uncomfortable. That's hard, that can be very hard, but it's the little things that we practice at while we're doing it. And the pizza thing that I just kind of went through was just sort of a fun little way to, I was, really wanting to hang on to my pizza. And the ball game, in a sense, was another part of that. My team is not in the playoffs, so I don't really care that much. It was an interesting way to watch the game. Yeah, it's kind of fun to watch, but I don't really care about the outcome as much. So kind of a good way to stay neutral about things. So here's something else. I've included this before. Laurie Santos is a professor at Yale, professor of psychology, and she created this Science of Wellbeing course. And there's a brief article, there's a link there. And she also has a podcast. Down here you see the Happiness Lab with Dr. Laurie Santos. Really nice podcast. And what she's doing right now is what she calls a funtervention, a fun intervention. And this idea of putting more fun into our lives. And I think, Barbara, you mentioned that, trying to reconnect with a hobby. It's a great example of that, kind of getting more into these periods of being in the zone or being in a state of flow where we're really connected to what we're doing and immersed. There's the same immersion thing. But her other insights here, I won't go through all these, but, just pointing out a couple things. Being in the present moment is savoring the good stuff, but then also being in the present moment, even if it sucks. So that idea of, that we're going to have both and that things never stay the same. I mean, change is constant. Things will always change. Things will always pass. And it's that sense of impermanence. So anyway, you might try that podcast and or read the article if you want to read more about that. Now, here's the other thing, and we'll finally get to our last meditation. There is a really nice app I've come across recently called Healthy Minds, and it's by Richie Davidson, who is a neuropsychologist. And he talks about these 4 pillars of flourishing. Awareness is this sense of, bringing awareness that we've been talking about in our mindful awareness, but in our meditation. But then also the idea of insight, learning a little bit more about what's going on in there. What are some of the thought patterns and assumptions and beliefs that we have? So having insight into our own minds and into our own mental activity. And then connection, of course, is hugely important. We realize this after going through the pandemic, how important connection is. And then a sense of purpose. So I'm going to weave a couple of these things into the meditation, but if you're interested in the app, there's the link to the website and it'll tell you about the app. I really like it so far. It's free. And it's really based on all his scientific research. He's been a major researcher in mindfulness, and it's led him into this work on flourishing. So all evidence-based ways to kind of train your mind and lead to more flourishing. So what I'd like to do for the last meditation is we'll go into a little bit of, what's important to us and, the idea of what's our purpose, what's really meaningful, what matters to us. But we'll start, as we often do, just by relaxing the body and the mind. So finding that position, letting the body find it on its own and closing the eyes, keeping a soft gaze down in front of you and just feel into your body. Allow yourself to be connected and grounded. Sense your feet on the floor, body in the chair. Allow the body to relax a little bit. And then take 3 nice deep breaths, feeling each breath with that beginner's mind. And if you like, bring a half smile of kindness to your face and feel its warmth and friendliness, and let it spread down into your shoulders and chest and heart area, and just let it spread through your body. And now that we've kind of settled ourselves and gathered our awareness, let's just notice any thoughts that are here. Just let them come and go. And even if there's thoughts that arise that are somewhat stressful or unpleasant, just noticing them. You don't have to fix anything now. You don't have to do anything with these thoughts, but just kind of noticing if something does arise in the mind that's stressful or something like that, just kind of notice what that's like. Be curious about it. And you might notice some thoughts are more compelling and they hijack our attention. And that's okay if that happens. And sometimes some thoughts are just pretty mild and neutral. So just kind of watching our thoughts. And if you get totally lost in a train of thoughts, that happens sometimes. Noticing that, let go of it, and then just using that, word back again, coming back to the breath, or just coming back to observing that train, that the thoughts come and go. And then you can always move down into the body when we're watching thoughts, and sometimes that creates a swirl of thinking. You can now drop down into your body and just notice your body again, reacquaint yourself with the body sitting here, feel the feet being grounded, the body in the chair. And if you feel the stress somewhere in your body, sometimes we feel a stressful thought or a stressful event in the body, just see if you can notice it. And even in a sense, welcome it, maybe be curious about it with that beginner's mind. And recognize it's a response to something that you care about. And you might ask yourself, what is at stake here? And why does it matter to you? So we get a little bit more insight into it. Okay, now shifting gears a little bit, take a moment to recall a time when you felt inspired and passionate. What memories come to mind? Time when you felt, really involved and engaged in something. It doesn't have to be a big event or achievement, just a time when you were engaged and inspired and you felt really kind of in that state of flow or in the zone. Just take a moment to recall that, or even to imagine it. In moments of inspiration, when we're engaged and passionate, often it's because we're doing something we particularly care about. So does it connect in some way with a deeper purpose or calling? Whatever you notice is okay. We're just kind of experimenting here. Just noticing what's important, getting in touch with those things that we value. All right, very good. Now, before we wrap up, let go of that reflection and connect again with your breath. Simply notice how it feels to breathe. And realize, purpose can feel pretty abstract, and we can get lost in all kinds of ideas of who you are and why you exist. But it can help to reflect on moments of your own life when you felt a strong sense of purpose. And this helps to bring things back down to earth. So as we come to a close, making an intention to bring this quality of awareness or insights or the purpose that you noticed with you as you re-engage with the day. And slowly opening the eyes when you're ready, and maybe feeling free to stretch or move the body. And again, I thank you for your presence and your practice in that meditation. All right, so coming to a close here, just leave this image up for a moment. Any thoughts or comments or reactions to that particular meditation and reflection? It's a little different, really kind of focusing on insights and purpose and what matters to us. Okay, well, going to remind you of these resources. Our meditations on our EFR website are on this site, and I'll send these out later. And then there are apps. I mentioned the Healthy Minds app, really good one, but also Insight Timer, 10% Happier. And then on YouTube, I put a lot of we just finished a Stress Less challenge, which I know some of you participated in. But we also last year did a mindfulness challenge, and there's a bunch of other classes that I put up on this YouTube channel. So this is where all the refreshers go too. So I'll leave you with this. May you be better able to respond to stress. May you be safe and happy and healthy. And may you live with ease. And may you find purpose and meaning. And finally, one last quote here. 10,000 flowers in spring, the moon in autumn, a cool breeze in summer, snow in winter. If your mind isn't clouded by unnecessary things, this is the best season of your life. So again, beginner's mind, right? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And thanks for, I see a note of thanks in the chat there. So yes, I will share the picture of the forest. I'll send the whole slides out. I'll put it out to the whole list. So thanks so much. Any other questions or comments? Hope it was helpful.
Yeah. Thank you, Bud.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, all. Be well.